Hello guys and welcome back to the Rovers Report, where in today's video I'm joined by Tom and we're going to be having a little look back over the first 5 games of the season, assessing where Rovers are at and having a little look around at how everyone else is getting on. Thanks for joining us today, Tom. You were there on Saturday, weren't you, at Fratton Park? So I guess let's just get straight into that for Rovers. How did you find the game, mate?
Of course, mate, obviously there's a bit of feeling of the penalty decision or decisions going against us. I think it's a bit of a difficult game to judge because we seem to have a lot of the possession, didn't really do too much with it, but at the same time, Pompey had a lot more attacking chances, and I think probably deserved to win. That being said, there was a 5 minute period where obviously the game went against us
Mhm.
with those two decisions by probably the worst referee I've seen in an EFL fixture, at least for a very long time.
You actually
Um,
said to me, didn't you, mate, that it needs to be investigated?
yeah, the emotions running high after the game, mate. That's all I'm going to say. But maybe not quite an investigation, but he was very very poor. And I think Barton had reason to be very angry. Although I'm not sure what the diatribe against the Cowleys really brings to anybody. But I think he had a right to be upset. I think every Rovers fan did. It's quite an watching it back. I think it's a penalty for them. There didn't seem to be too many complaints from our players. But it's a stonewall penalty for Collins,
Yeah.
and that could have changed the game because we were on top. I think in that sort of 5 to 10 minute period after equalising, we didn't really test them that much. We didn't. I don't think Marquis and Collins really had much to go off. If I'm being honest, I was slightly confused by the lineup and formation. We seem to be playing with inverted wing backs, with Evans on the right and Finley on the left, sort of coming inside when we had possession to try and link up with Whelan and Coots. We were quite slow playing the ball out from the back. We are missing that sort of fluid midfielder, it seems, at the moment.
Mm.
I do like playing Finley there when we have allowing him to be an 8 and playing in more space when we play with 4 at the back and 3 in midfield. But if we're playing 5 at the back, I'd never really go with square pegs and round holes. I would have started Gordon
Yeah.
and Harry Anderson, and obviously given them more defensive instructions because at least we could have I don't know, perhaps be a bit quicker playing out from the back. At least got men forward. We seem to be kind of playing the ball forward to Marquis, and to be fair, he didn't hold it up too well in the first half. Then again, there weren't many supporting players around him. Gibson impressed me at the back. I thought he was really composed and put some good challenges in and blocks. Belly, I don't think had to make too many saves actually in the first
Mm.
half. They had a couple of shots that were off target. And I think the scoreline does flatter Pompey slightly. I think probably a 2-1 victory or a 2-2 draw would have been fair. But they're going to be up there probably this season. I can't see them winning the league or finishing the automatics, probably in the playoffs as per.
Yeah.
But Cowley's obviously recruited well. They have Piggott and Dion Charles up front, who are two very good League One strikers. And obviously Marlon Pack in midfield is a good signing for League One. So I think obviously I feel we have a right to feel disappointed given the decisions that went against us, which ultimately turned the game in Pompey's favour. But it was a good contest, and hopefully also Louis Thompson is back on the pitch soon. It was my opinion is that it's a fair challenge, and
Yeah.
unfortunately his legs caught in the turf and between Whelan. Whelan's not gone in with any malice. He probably hasn't even seen Thompson, but it's just the way it's come together. And
This is not a
obviously,
red card, is it, mate?
it's not a red card. It's
Just
perhaps a yellow because of the way it's materialised, but there was no intent, and it's just the contact and the coming together,
yeah.
and the angle that it occurred at, which has caused the horrible injury. And I think it was pretty poor for Joey to not really wish the
Yeah.
lad well in his interview. I know he had a right to be agreed, but I think um, I agreed with a lot of what he said in his interview, apart from the sort of
Well,
invective against the
actually,
Cowley. I
actually,
didn't
mate,
understand that.
if we can, because there's going to be two things I sort of wanted to touch on in relation to Saturday's game, and you can sort of bring them together because obviously Barton commented about it. One is obviously the penalty decision. I think I'm of a similar opinion of you. Their penalty, if that's for us, we're happy with that. We're not complaining. I think that's fair enough. That's a penalty. just to try and sort of play devil's advocate or look at it from a Pompey or the referee's perspective, I think you can say that Aaron Collins has put his leg towards the player, but that I don't think that's relevant. Do you know what I mean? A lot of
It's
fouls in the modern game will be, I'll get my body in the way. If you don't
mm,
stop, then that's your fault. And I think that's what's happened. You know, he would stay on his feet if the guy hadn't made contact with him. And
mm.
so I think there's no way you can look at that as a referee and say that isn't a penalty.
I think for all of the Pompey fans and also the Rose fans that don't think it's a penalty, I think you should look at match of the day from the weekend and look at Leicester versus Southampton and the Vardy incident, Saint centre half in the first
Very
few
true.
minutes, because that's a perfect example of a striker who's thrown his body unnaturally into the defender. For me, Collins, there's the movement there, but it's not unnatural. He's still moving forwards. He's not moving sideways.
He hasn't
He's
stopped.
ready to get. He's ready to put the. He's ready to shoot. It's not like he's purposely stopped shooting because the defender's there. In fact, he's also shoved in the back, regardless of the
Yeah,
tangle of leg. He's also shoved by um, Rafferty, I think. So
I think I
it,
think I think it's cowardly from the referee. Do you know what I mean? He's
it
in his
was,
head. He's
yeah.
gone right. This is a game-changing decision. The home crowd are going to go against me here, and he's sort of gone. Well, I'll leave that. And I think Barton's comments actually were spot on. He's very lucky that he's got an owner that backs him. But you know, if that's sort of at the end of the season, and that's a decision that can keep Rovers up in a division, it can cost people their jobs. And you know, it's hard to say whether I think there has been a trend in poor refereeing over the last few seasons, because you always sort of have that opinion, don't you? That especially in the lower divisions, is the referees have always been shit. But
Mm.
I think it's good that it's getting highlighted, because it's not acceptable, is it, mate? Especially you've gone down there and travelled, and the game potentially has been wasted for you because of that decision.
Yeah, and it's obviously highlighting what Nigel Pearson spoke about
Mm.
last week, and I think City have a right to feel aggrieved because they're
That penalty
I think
stat, mate, is
a
nuts.
penalty stat is pretty nuts. And yeah, it there's no. I feel like referees, obviously, if you're going to be lenient or whatever, it's just an example. And obviously, the referee on the weekend wasn't, but sometimes you feel referees are too lenient against one side, whatever. Or if he's lenient against both sides, he might not be getting decisions right, but at least he's consistent. But
Yeah.
referee on the weekend, every 50-50 went Pompey's way. As I said, I think it was the right decision to give Pompey their penalty, but ours turned down was completely wrong, very questionable. But it wasn't just that. It was after that penalty incident, a number of incidents, and the fact that we had a corner at the end and the referee blew for full time at the same time. I
It,
think it
it
was
it
just
was about 30 seconds too early, wasn't it? From the
yeah, it was.
7 minutes added time or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some stoppages in that as well. It was probably the worst refereeing performance I've ever seen in a football league game.
Interesting, mate.
And it's obviously it shouldn't. I don't think it should be investigated, but it should be highlighted. I know obviously that will be highlighted by Rovers in the referee's report or in the referee report. Some of the stuff was quite astounding. But that being said, I think we probably shouldn't feel too aggrieved with
That's the thing, isn't it?
when I feel like they, on the balance of play, they probably were the better team, and on paper they are. We're still a team
Yeah.
that needs 4 or 5 signings, and we didn't use the possession we had in the first half. We had centre mids playing as wing backs, and I think that's an experiment that went wrong, and Joey won't do the same. For example, when we play Wendy at
Mm.
Hillsborough, and also up against the bigger teams of division like Ipswich at Portman Road next month, I think. So I feel like it's a lesson learned that if you're going to play 5 at the back, I understand it from a possession point of view, because you want players like Evo and Finley on the
Yeah.
ball who are probably better technically than wing backs. But that being said, I feel like that should be a disservice. But
You need the right
it was
personnel in the
kind
right
of
positions, don't you, mate?
you do. I really don't like square pegs in round holes. I think if you've got wing backs, you should play them in the wing back position, and you shouldn't be playing centre mids.
Mm.
Um, it naturally also when you're playing inverted wing backs, which they were, especially Finley, you wanted to come inside. There wasn't much width in our build-up play,
Mm.
and I'm not a big fan of that. I like to stretch the pitch as much as possible. which may have left us open to Pompey counter-attacking. But I kind of feel like I'm a bit of a crash bang wallop sort of
Yeah.
I'd manager if I ever were one. I'd prefer to give our sort of fullbacks a chance to go forward. But I just on another note, I mentioned him earlier, but it was very impressive debut by Gibson, and
Mm.
I think surely one to watch as well.
Well, I think Barton is, he's good at acquiring these young talents, obviously through his connections. And I just think if we can sort of segue that into the final point I was going to say on this game is the comments that Barton made about Portsmouth and the Cowley brothers is something very interesting to me, because you see, even from his time at Fleetwood, we became very aware that he does these sort of outlandish statements, doesn't he? And I've thought to myself today, how useful is it? And I think someone on the Top 20 podcast said it. It's not he's not using that to sort of satisfy the press or the media. I think he's using that to motivate our players. And I'd just be interested to know what you think. I'll say my bit first and ask you about, basically, do you agree with him? Because there's a few things to it, isn't there? Are we going to overtake Portsmouth in, he said, a short period of time? And I guess there's various ways you can measure that, the most obvious being league position. And then about his comments in regards to the 4-4-2 formation. I think for me, it take a lot to overtake them. Do you know what I mean? They've been up there for many years, and I know he's building a good squad with Joey Barton, but you've got to be realistic and think it's not easy to get out of this division. And that's effectively what I think that would mean, is if we overtake them, then we're going to be looking at promotion, aren't we? So I'll be interested to see what you think about it, mate.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because you can't afford to have delusions of grandeur in this division. At the same time, there's no reason why we can't be confident to do well, considering the upward trajectory that we're on. I just think it's a bit like your personality as well. Focus on yourself and your own goals rather than making direct comments about
It's very
Pompey and
true.
the
There's
Cowley
no
brothers.
weakness there. Do you know what I mean? It's not.
I think it was.
Really.
I think it was. I feel obviously it's hit the moment stuff, and at the same time, he did use similar tactics at Fleetwood. Out, there's the infamous presser after the Sunderland game at the Stadium of Light, where I think Sunderland equalised against Fleetwood in the last few minutes and
Little old Fleetwood
celebrated as if they won the league. But I think, and also the comments they made on Saturday weren't those sort of comments. It was more of the fact that my style of management would be to focus on our own goals. I mean, Danny Cowley, it seems, has always been quite complimentary of Joey on EFL Quest and the like. So I think what annoyed with Joey was the fact that the Cowley brothers were trying to get Whelan sent off.
Yeah.
Which is poor. I mean, as we've said, it's a yellow card max.
Was that the case in the stadium? Could you see that clearly?
I saw Cowley speaking to the fourth official. I didn't see initially what their reaction was, but obviously Joey knew better than us, considering how close he was. But I think I can understand why he'd be really frustrated with that, and that's probably played a factor. If that didn't happen and the Whelan Thompson tackle didn't happen, then I think he wouldn't have made those direct comments. Even if the other decisions. Sorry?
I think it's frustration as well, isn't it? I think he's.
It is.
I've gone away to one of the big boys in the division, and we've come so close, and because of the referee's decision, and he's sort of, I always think when you put a microphone under a manager's face 10, 15 minutes afterwards, it's still the heat of the game, isn't it? Once he's calmed down, he may not have said that. And I think you've got to consider that when listening to his comments.
Exactly. I think with those sorts of comments, you've got to take a pinch of salt. Had we lost 3-1 like we did with the decisions that went against us, and as I said, and the Whelan the tackle didn't happen, then I think Joey wouldn't have made those comments. And I think it's therefore unfair to. I feel like obviously he said it in the heat of the moment, and I think it's poor. But at the end of the day, it doesn't happen if the Cowleys don't have a go. But I mean, I'm sitting on the fence slightly with these comments, but I think you got to respect Danny Cowley. He's a very good manager at this level, and his brother's been his assistant the whole time. They're building a very good squad at Portsmouth. That being said, I thought they'd be a bit more dominating. But we'll see come the end of the season. But I think they'll be in the playoffs again. I can't see them superseding Ipswich,
No, well,
the likes of Wendy.
yeah.
So interesting.
Well,
But
if we stick on that then, mate, we've sort of covered the Rovers game now. If you want to go and have a little look at the sort of the rest of the teams in League One, and let's start with Ipswich and Peterborough up there, because I've sort of in my predictions for the league before obviously it all kicked off, I had Ipswich Peterborough up there, and I'm sure that many others did. And it seems to me that there is a pattern at the minute that if the season ended right now, barring a couple of teams in there, your MK Dons, your Wickhams, it's a quite a predictable league, isn't it? Ipswich looking very dangerous at the minute. They've got quality players all over the pitch. McKenna's doing a brilliant job with them. Peterborough know this league inside and out. I mean, their front two of Marriott and JCH that's not a League One strike.
it's incredible for this level, yeah.
So, yeah, I just think it's interesting, sort of. The top eight, it's got your big teams in there, and I just think it's probably going to stick that way. I don't know if you agree with that, or
I do agree with you, mate. I've just got the table up in front of me now, and obviously Ipswich unbeaten at the top, another comprehensive victory, this time away at Salop on the weekend. So, who are obviously probably they've had a poor start to the season, but even then, I feel like the man of the victories, it's comprehensive, and they are going to be up there come the end of the season.
definitely.
It's Marcus Harness, isn't it, that's on fire for them at the moment, I think.
Yeah, they bought him Pompey this.
Yeah, exactly. So they're definitely going to be up there. Posh as well, the fact that they've managed to keep JCH, who's such a fantastic striker for this level, arguably top-end championship.
Yeah.
And
on his day, definitely.
On his day. And then Marriott, who we all know can score goals regularly at this level. Probably hasn't worked out for him that much in Championship, but doesn't really matter when you're playing in League One this season.
You've got to put a lot of that down to injuries, mate.
Yeah.
If he stays fit, he's not playing in League One.
Yeah, definitely. I always remember fearing him when I think it was 2017-18 season when I remember we went away to Posh. And I think he might have scored. I can't remember. We actually managed to draw that game. Anyway, I digress. So obviously Pompey up there, Wendy as well. Argyle have another good start to the season. I think they started very well last season as well. Good result against FGR, who obviously have started to struggle a little bit as well. Their only victory, I think they've won 2 games. No, their only victory was against us actually.
Just on Plymouth, there's something I wanted to cover on that, because I don't know if you obviously heard of Finn Azaz, haven't you?
Yeah, I have, mate. He was in the League Two team this season last year. Good attacking midfielder, known from Villa.
And do you know their wing back Barley Mumba? Who's on?
No, I do.
On loan.
He's the lad who was at Sunderland, wasn't he?
I think so. Yeah, he's on loan from Norwich. And I was just thinking, when you sort of hear about the thing with transfers where players are reluctant to go somewhere like Plymouth, do you think it could work the other way for Premier League clubs? Is sort of, look, there's these young lads, let's go and send them to somewhere like Plymouth or down there where their whole life is going to revolve around football. I'm not saying there's not temptations. You can obviously go out to the pub in Plymouth still, but do you know what I mean? It's sort of just go down there, play your football, live in your house, go from the house to the training ground, and that's it. And do you think that's something that a Premier League or a Championship club will look at a team and go, we can just send our youngsters there, they're going to develop them well, and they'll come back as better people and better players?
I agree, and unfortunately, there's still a prism in Plymouth, so
there
are some distractions, unfortunately, but no, I agree. I think it's kind of like the ultimate sort of formative experience to go down to League One and League Two like Elliot Anderson did. And now he's on the bench for the first team Newcastle. So, and obviously being in Bristol, whatever, there's obviously there's nightlife and the likes. But I agree. I also think Argyle, they do play some very good football. I haven't watched their game against FGR on the weekend, but winning 3-0, I'd imagine they play some very good football, and they obviously beat Posh as well a couple of weeks ago. So I think they'll be up there. I'm just moving down the table and slightly onto the next topic. Not too far down the table actually. I watched Charlton against Cambridge and the highlights, and Charlton didn't really impress me too much. Obviously, Garner's there at the helm. But it's a kind of like a lot of people talk about Pompey not going up to the Championship and it's taken a while. And obviously Ipswich are sort of falling into that category. But
Mm.
Charlton, I'm pretty sure have been in.
They
Actually,
found
no, they actually, sorry, that being said, they were in the Championship for one season, weren't they? They've
but I know what you
spent
mean. They
the
do fly under the radar a
majority
bit of
they've
underperforming.
spent the majority of the last since 20 they were relegated to League One 2015-16, 16, 17, 17, 18, they and 18-19 they were League One. Then
Mm.
19-20, that was the season Locks was there. They were relegated from the Championship. So they're now in their third season back. You know, you'd think a club the size of Charlton would be up there, and I don't know. Maybe Garner's the answer. I'm not entirely convinced,
Yeah,
but
I'm waiting to be proved wrong by him, but I don't necessarily think that's as ambitious as a lot of
they do
fans.
have some good players. Charlie Kirk's one who springs to mind. Always impressed me at Crewe.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Um,
true.
um,
They made I can't remember. They made a big signing, which I remember looking at and thinking, "Fucking fair." But how have they got him in? I'm trying to think who that was. I think it was a
I'm
winger.
not sure off the top of my head, but it's it's an odd situation, and I hope they do well because I think they are a good football club. They're a very good academy down there as well, in the South London breeding ground. So it's an interesting one because they were never, from what I remember, I mean last couple of seasons might have been challenging, but they've always struck me as probably one of the most, if not the most, underperforming clubs. And that was even after they got rid of the Belgian owner who was sort of running them into
Yeah,
the ground. Do you remember Carl Robinson was their manager as well?
yeah, I did.
And it didn't work out. So, that's another. I mean, they've started fairly well. 2 wins, 2 draws, and only 1 defeat. I'm happy to be proven wrong on the Ghana point, as long as
Do,
it's not at
do,
Rovers' expense.
do you think? Obviously, we're not necessarily their previous seasons. They've underperformed a bit. We're not putting them in that category. But if we move on to our next topic of the teams that are currently underperforming, I said to you before the video, and I did predict it actually in my league predictions, is that quite often teams will get a bit of a hangover from a unsuccessful playoff campaign. And
Yeah,
I think it's a bit harsh to say it of Wickham because they still have. I think how many wins have they picked up this season? It's
they've won 2, lost
yeah,
3.
so it's not disastrous. And MK Dons, but MK Dons were tipped by a lot this season to like get straight
Yeah,
on the horse and almost, I think, for quite a few challenge for automatics. And I think we've said it is maybe the loss of Twine and Harry Darling has actually damaged them more than we thought.
yeah, I think so. I guess it's still very much early days. I guess with the Forest campaign last year, you can never really
Yeah,
predict anything after even 7 or 8 games. But they are struggling, and it's it. I mean, it's a centre half and your star striker go, and it doesn't seem like they've replaced them. It's always not going to end well. Um, it's arguably the 2 most important positions on the pitch. So
mm.
it's an interesting one, and I think didn't they lose Russell Martin halfway through last season as well?
Yeah. And
Manager.
I think there does need to be a bit of a caveat as well. 2 of their losses have been to Ipswich and Wednesday. So
Yeah,
it's not easy, is it? They drew with Accrington and then beaten Vale, I think it was. So
yeah.
they've played some difficult teams. They've beaten Vale, you'd expect them to beat. That Aki result could be a bit of an anomaly. But I mean, maybe they're just not going to be challenging for automatics. But like you said, mate, I think it's very true of the whole league is give it probably 15 games, mate. 10 games, you can have a rough idea. 15 is when you really start to think, okay, this
Mm.
is where the season might end up. I mean, like similar to another underperformers is Shrewsbury and Oxford. I think for a lot of people, they're tipping Oxford as, but potentially even automatics. Shrewsbury was sort of that team just outside of the top 8 who might have a little bit of a cheeky push for it. And both of them have been, in my notes, have got down pretty toothless. Shrewsbury have been relying upon their goalkeeper. Oxford, I think Oxford, something's going on there because for the players that they have, you look at a lot of that. Matty Taylor probably in that sort of purgatory between Championship and League One. Josh Murphy should be higher than League
It's a
One.
great signing.
Cameron Brannigan definitely is a
Was on his way
Championship
to
player.
Peony, wasn't he?
And for them to only have one victory, is it one victory? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's poor that. So I'll be looking at them to.
And that was a last-minute winner as well against
Exactly.
Cambridge. It's really surprising, and we did. I feel like we did deserve to beat them last weekend, or the weekend before last. So it's an odd one because they've always struck me as a team that obviously play very good football, but sometimes it comes back to biting them in the backside, and they do. They were prone to the odd quite a few lapses in concentration against us, especially at the back.
It's a
And
slow defence as well, mate, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's not a quick defence.
it's a slow. It was a slow defence, and also they played very good football in our half, but out from the back, they were hoofing it quite a bit. I mean, it was
And it's not the front
was
three to do that,
it's
is it?
it's not but I feel like we pressed them quite well, especially Marquis from the front, who I feel has obviously been a bit unlucky, and hopefully he scores 15 to 20 goals this season. But
Really, on that actually, because when I did a preview with Hugh from the Pompey podcast, he asked me what I thought of Marquis, and obviously I haven't watched him too much this season, so I'll be interested to know what you think about him so far. It's only 5 games in, but
it's a tough one because he likes to obviously press on the front. He's a striker and we could see that from the first game he played, which I think was the first game that we could see, which was Stoke at home pre-season, pressing from the front. Really good. I feel like he's got good hold at play. He was off it against Pompey on the weekend. He's normally shown pretty good hold at play, good movement as well. I felt like on Saturday he was actually making some quite good runs, but we weren't picking him out. And it was actually quite frustrating to watch because I feel like movement as a striker is obviously I almost feel that has to be your best asset because
yeah,
if you're the best positioned in the league, the best mover,
you're going to score goals.
you're gonna score easy goals. But if it was frustrating because he wasn't being picked out. And I think obviously he's a good natural finisher. He just hasn't really had that many opportunities. I think he hit the bar against Barton.
Yeah.
From what I remember, he hasn't had many clear-cut chances. We haven't
I
created
don't
that
think
many
so, mate.
chances for him.
That's what I mean. There hasn't been too many anyway, has there?
I think it will.
And also, I remember Hugh said to me, he said he's not going to get you more than sort of 10, 12 goals. I think with where we've got goals coming from elsewhere on the pitch, 12 goals for me is a good season. Do you know what I mean? We didn't have
Yeah,
that last season. We didn't have that player that's going to add on to what we already get through Collins. I think that's fine.
exactly, mate. If Asa goes on to score 15 to 20 and Marquis scores 10 to 15, your strike force arguably could score close to 35
and that's
goals.
perfect for me. I don't
And
mind.
you've got players like Finley chipping in. If we sign a winger, obviously it looks like Maka is through the door.
Yes, yeah, I did see that.
And I've seen that today. I feel like I played a very good game with that, and credit must go to Gorringe and Joey or whoever's recruiting or negotiating, because that's obviously we played hardball with that all summer, and it seems to have come through it. But let's see.
Well, just on that, because I think we've got 10 minutes left, mate. And if we
Yeah.
let's preview the Shrewsbury game a little bit. And I think one of those would be, I think Joey said, didn't he, before the game, he wants to have a couple more through the door. I think if Maka comes in, I think he goes straight into the team. I think you probably see him sort of deployed in that Anderson position where he'll play in the front three behind the one, which I don't mind that at all. I think you probably have Coots, Finley, Evo. That's hard then, isn't it, actually? Because who do you drop? Do you drop Harry Anderson? So you're not dropping Collins, are you? Or maybe Collins goes into the striker position.
I always feel like with Maka, he's got to start midfield, but that brings a managerial headache because you've got Evo, Finley, and Maka who can play in the 8.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's looking for just strength and depth there. It's a complicated one because it will be, you have 3 quality midfielders who can play in that position. And I think it's very much strength and depth, but I'm Finley's biggest fan.
Yeah, for me,
And I really like Evans, but then if we sign Maka, then the thing is, from his time at Rovers, I would say probably wasn't quick enough to play on the wing. He's definitely your box to box midfielder.
hard then,
Is
isn't it? Because
is
you've
a
got
hard one.
Rossiter, Coots. Yeah, if they're all fit, you say Coots has to start because he's obviously our captain, so integral to the way we play. You'd say Finley has to start. Maybe Evo goes out wide, but I mean, he's definitely not
Yeah,
as out wide as he is through the middle, is he? I think he probably
exactly.
brings off Marquis and he puts Collins up top, and then he plays
Maka on
Anderson.
the left.
And you're right though, because he wasn't the quickest, was he? Maybe he puts.
No,
What does he
his
go for, like
strength.
a 4-2-2-2, and have Evo and
Yeah,
McCall, and then Collins and Marquis up top? You might do that because I mean, if we've got Hall and Gordon at left and right back, that's width there, isn't it? So
mm.
it'll be interesting to see,
I
mate.
think it's a very good signing and one that I've wanted ever since I heard that we were in for him. But it gives a bit of a managerial headache for Joey.
Mm.
And that on the topic of signings, someone who I think we would be a good signing would be Izzy Brown.
Mm.
Despite being injury prone, which seems to be a little bit of a theme of our signings at the moment, unfortunately. But he's got a lot to prove. He was at PNE, I
Mm.
think, last season, didn't play because he was injured. But the lad's 25, he has to kick on now. A championship club wouldn't be in for him.
How
That
old
being
is
said,
he?
he's 25.
25. Sorry,
So
that's fine.
when he's played regularly, he's been one of the star players. I think he was at Brighton in the Premier League for half a season, their first season in the Prem. He started a lot of Rotherham won the
Huddersfield.
championship, Huddersfield as well, promoted with them. They were in for him permanently. He's someone who has had a bit of rough and tumble and needs
Yeah.
to have one or two good seasons at a club in League One, to be honest, because he's not going to get a championship club.
No,
I think
you're
with the
right
injury
there.
record. Um, Off the top of my head, I can't think of any
What do you think about
players.
Adam Phillips' shout?
I feel like he's another central midfielder like Finley and Maka, isn't he? I think it would, for me, it would either have been Maka or Phillips, and it seems like Maka's through the door.
Well, he must have a plan in mind, Barton. Because if you look at it now, we've got, well, Grant is, in my opinion, is best at centre mid, I think. So you got him, you got Whelan, obviously doesn't really want to use him. Finley, Coots, Evo, Rossiter. If you bring Maka in, that's 7 central midfielders. So he must be looking to lean towards that sort of the narrow diamond or something like that. Because
Maybe he is looking to utilise that five at the back with inverted wing backs being your centre mids, and they come in to join.
yeah,
It's an interesting one. I can't say I'm a big fan of it at all, having seen it in the flesh on Saturday. I always think our strongest formation will be the 4-3-3, like how we played last season. I
I,
think
I agree. The 4-2-3-1 for me is that's how it worked best, didn't it?
I think our strongest team at the moment would be obviously Belly and goal.
Yeah,
I'd
go on. Give me your team for what you play against Shrewsbury, and
For Shrewsbury, I'd play 4-3-3
go,
back to how
go on the
we
assumption that Mac is not in at the moment.
assumption. Okay, fine. So from our current squad, and this is how we played at Burton and home to Oxford. It was 4-3-3. To be fair, Saturday I think was the first game where we deviated from that. Actually, no, but Barnes do play five at the back. Anyway, I'd play a 4-3-3. I'd have Belly and goal. I'd put Luca Hall right back.
Yeah.
I'd have Connolly and Gibson centre halves.
So
I'd have
he's
Gordon.
done enough for you, Gibson, to start.
Yeah, definitely. I think he was probably our best player on Saturday. I'd have Gordon left back.
He didn't come on Saturday. He wasn't injured, was he, Gordon?
No. It was a little bit odd. I think I then have Coots as a linchpin. I'd have Finley and Evo off him. So
Yeah.
that's the three midfield. I'd have Harry Anderson reinstated at right wing. I'd have Collins still on the left and Big John up top. If Maka signs, then I obviously play him for Finley or Evo, or the three of them are going to have to rotate, I think, throughout the season, unless he's planning on playing Maka out wide. It's just, I feel like Maka's deep runs from midfield into the box, that's how he scored 3 or 4 of his goals at Rovers. I think that's how he scored at Wombles last season. So that's how I play against Shrewsbury. I think my prediction would be, I think a 2-0 Rovers win. I think will be too much.
We've got to go for it, in my opinion, mate. I think pretty much all home games this year, you've got, especially against teams like Shrewsbury, no disrespect to them, but take your points against your Barnsley's, your Derbies, and your Wednesdays at home. Against Shrewsbury, especially with the form they're in, we've got to go for it. Do you know? And
Mm.
that's why I do really enjoy having Barton as a manager. He is a positive manager. If it's 1-1 in the last 10 minutes, a lot of other managers would go, look, we're not going to throw caution to the wind. He will
Yeah.
do. He'll chuck on, Loft and Saunders and take off a defender and a midfielder. And occasionally that might cost us a point, but I think more times than not, it's probably going to earn us too. So I think it's worth it. I think we just need a few more signings in that attacking position, in the attacking, especially the wide positions, because, like, when you just said your team there and you said your front sort of 3 or 4, it picks itself every week, and
Yeah, it
that's
does.
never a good thing, is it? You don't want the team to be.
We need some backup. I think like we've got most of our starting 11, but we need some wingers through the door first and foremost, to give backup. Mack is another central midfielder. I think we need maybe another player who can play centre half and right back. And then the Jacola situation slightly confused me. I don't know. I assume he's our backup and keeping coach at the moment.
Yeah, you'd assume so, wouldn't you?
So yeah, that'll be my team. I feel like we have enough to compete this season, but I don't think we'll be putting up any trees, as I said to you yesterday.
No, I agree, mate. Thank you. Thanks for coming on again, mate. I'll put all of our links in the description below, so make sure to go and follow them, everyone. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. If you're new around here, subscribe. And yeah, thanks for coming on, Tom, and I'll see you guys later.
Cheers, fella.
Cheers, mate.